Welcome back to episode 5 of Diddy's Guide to GTH Bees. Following last week's double episode, I wanted to continue talking about the next blocks that you'll get into in your GTH journey. So, as you get farther in the pack, you'll unlock new things. This episode is going to be all about the industrial apiary. I was planning on having gendistry as well as part of this episode. However, I went too long. Talked about the iApiary a lot and my thoughts about it, and I didn't want to have a 40 to 50 minute long episode because gendistry itself, there's quite a bit to it, and I wanted to split them up so that there was more kind of focus on iApiaries this episode, and then the next episode would be about the about gendistry, and so then people could go back and watch it in case there are specific parts they wanted, but didn't want to sit through different whatever. So I think I had a problem with that in the episodes in the past of them being too long because I just wanted to include so much information. But I'm going to split this episode and the next episode to this one being just iApiary. The next one will be gendistry. Then there'll be a mini episode, probably not even a long one, maybe like a 10-minute episode just on the mega apiary and what you can do with it, and talking about that. Like I said when I first started this series, it's not going to be it is a tutorial, but it's also not like a full just tutorial. This is what you should do. This would do. It's also kind of like a rambling and my inner thoughts and just how I personally tackle each of these, bee related items in GregTech New Horizons and what I think you should do with them, how I think you should approach understanding them and what they do. So that's why I wanted to make sure that these episodes are as in-depth as I think they need to be, and that they actually have the knowledge that I have, and I'm giving it to you. So there'll be another episode of Gentry, another episode of Mega Apiary. There'll be an episode about tree breeding, which isn't really technically about bees, but it's kind of along the lines. And then there should be an episode about like magic mods, about witchery, blood magic, and botania, which all integrate within bees. However, it's going to take me quite a bit of time to get that episode out because I need to learn about the magic mods that exist in this pack. So I just wanted to give you guys a little update. This is episode 5, all about the industrial apiaries, as you see behind me. Let's get into it. The iApiary is a GregTech version of the apiary that accepts power and speeds through bee cycles. There are a few things to note about the industrial apiary. First, it can accept up to UV power. You can see that at the bottom says voltage in 524,288 UV. So it can go up to UV power, meaning you could give it LV, MV, HV, etc. up to UV, but you can't go past UV power. Second, as you can see from the GUI when I open this up, there's no place to put frames. So when it comes to mutation, I would still recommend using the APIARY with your electrical simulators and your frame housings, as it would be a lot easier to get the mutation that you want. You can use this to breed stats on, or to just make a bunch of drones if you wish, but I would not recommend using this to mutate, as there would be no way to get extra chances of mutation. And third, I would recommend that you use pristines in the industrial apiary. There is a upgrade, which we'll get into later, that allows ignoble bees to survive in the industrial apiary. However, you only get 4 upgrade slots, so there's a chance that you would probably want something else there instead. There's 3 that I highly recommend you actually use most of the time, so then you kind of only have 1 slot remaining. So I would recommend just using pristine bees inside your industrial apiary, so you never have to worry about the ignoble bees dying in case you need to switch out the stabilizer upgrade for something else in the future. Now, like I mentioned, there are 4 slots here for upgrades. Let's talk about the rest of the industrial apiary. So there's 2 buttons here on the side, the cancel process and the automatically put the queen in slot. So if the bee is cycling, and you see the bee will cycle, and you can see the arrow here just like other machines, if you want to stop that cycle, you can cancel the process. However, it will not stop the princess and the drone from combining to become a queen. So that you cannot stop. But if it is a queen that's running, you can stop it and it'll automatically return the queen back to this slot. If you do this, however, you will have to use a soft mallet to restart the machine, just like you would any other machine in GregTech. The automatically put the queen after breeding the input slot back is when the queen finishes its bee cycle, it'll go to the princess and the drone. And then if you have this enabled, the princess will automatically go back into here. Now, there is some debate about whether or not this is good or using the automation upgrade. I would recommend using the automation upgrade. Again, we'll get that in a second. But those are the two buttons here on the side. Obviously, item auto output is right here on the bottom left. This is just, to hook it up to AE or hook it up to a conduit or whatever, so you can put it into a chest. The acceleration here next to the item auto output button is for how you can determine how fast the bees are accelerated inside the industrial apiary. As you can see right now, it's 1x locked to maximum because we don't have any acceleration upgrades in it. We will get into that, as I said. However, there are different tiers of acceleration upgrades that you can use, and when you have them enabled, you can actually lock it to a specific one so you don't use as much energy, but also so that you can know how fast you are accelerating the bees. Like I mentioned, the princess and the drone goes here, or the queen goes here. If you want to start simulating bees, these are the 4 upgrade slots that go that are under the arrow. Obviously, you can power it here, but these are the upgrade slots you have to put in the upgrades, which we'll talk about. These are the 9 slots of the output. So one thing you should know is that there may be 9 slots here. However, you really only have 7, because when the queen finishes its cycle, the princess and the drone has to be 2 of the outputs. So you only have 7 outputs here. This is why I mentioned in previous episodes, and this is why you probably heard other people talk about it or guides say that you want shortest lifespan on bees that go into the industrial apiary. This is because that if you have longer lifespans, as you can probably tell from your alvearies and what I've talked about, you get more resources over time because of the production multiplier and because you're running it for a longer time and the bee ticks. If you have items that exceed 7 slots, it'll actually void the excess items. So you want shortest lifespan so that you don't actually hit all 7. You don't fill up all 7 slots that are in this output. So then you don't void any items. So that's why it's recommended you use shortest lifespan. Shorter lifespan should also be okay, but I would really tell you to go for the shorter and shortest lifespan when you get to the industrial apiary, and that obviously can be done really easily because by the time by using industrial apiary, you'll also have access to dentistry, and dentistry makes statting bees very, very simple. Now let's talk about when you should use the industrial apiary. In my opinion, and again, this is my opinion and my recommendation, I would not use the industrial apiary until you get about IV or LUV. While other people may say something different, and you can definitely get, the iApiary very much after you get the alvearies because it only requires HV parts. I would say that you should only use it when you can produce a lot of power and can afford to run the industrial apiary. If we take a look at this bee, it's just the shortest lifespan blinding worker, and we put in this bee slot with no upgrades, whatever, we'll see that it takes 412 seconds at 37 EU a tick. Okay, so 412 seconds, yeah, that's technically shorter than what you would get in an alvear with long lifespan, and 37 EU ticks is nothing. However, the point of an industrial apiary is so that you can actually speed it up and you can actually accelerate the bee, because you want to move through the cycles, get as much combs and resources as you possibly can. If we take a look at this apiary next to it, which has the acceleration upgrade with an IV, the IV version, so that's acceleration upgrade 5, and the automation upgrade, which again I'll get into after this. If you put this in here and you start the bee cycle, you can actually now see it says 9,494 EU a tick and 12 seconds. So that's because it's accelerated, and if you can see that here in the bottom left, acceleration 32x, energy use is plus 8,192 EU a tick because I'm using 1 amp of IV. Now, automating the iApiary is very easy. You just wrench up and it'll go straight into a chest, or you can wrench, you can wrench aside. If actually you can't really see it, but if you can wrench aside, or you can wrench up and whatever you can, and then put into a conduit, however you want to do it. But the thing to take account here is that it says 9,400 EU a tick. That's for one industrial apiary and IV power. If you have 10 or so bees that you want to passive, 10 bees at 9,400 EU a tick, we're talking close to 100,000 EU a tick. And at IV, you have to think about this, is that really sustainable? The answer to me is that it's not. I don't think that you can sustain that kind of power in IV, even really into LUV, until you start getting into supercritical steam with fusion or nitrobenzene, multiple XL gas turbines, whatever it is, whatever your power you're trying to use. So that's why I recommend that you don't use the industrial apiary until you are much later in the pack, when you can actually afford the power to run not just one but multiple. Now this is only using the acceleration upgrades. You can actually put up to 8 production upgrades, which will really help you accelerate your resource production, which is what I recommend using. If you put the 8 upgrades in here, and look at this, now it jumps up to 27,000 EU a tick. Same 12 seconds, which is what matters, right? We're speeding through B cycles, but 27,000 EU a tick. And say you wanted 10 again, multiply by 10, that's 270,000 EU a tick. Can you actually afford that? The point of bees is to be passive. You want to set them up passively while you go and do other things in your GregTech New Horizons world, while you go work on GregTech or Thaumcraft or other base related things. If you're going to expend this much power for bees, then you're going to want to have a robust power system. So that's why it'd be recommended you just keep them in alvearies, because one, the timing doesn't matter. Over time, it'll produce you a lot of resources as well. And yes, it may take longer, but the power cost for alvearies, even with the upgrades, is relative to 27,000 EU a tick. You're going to be spending practically nothing compared to this, because that's RF, which is converted from EU. So that's why I would say you should use the industrial apiary when you are way past the point where you can afford such power, or you're just going to be, you're going to be drowning in the fact that you don't have any power because your industrial apiaries are eating it all. Now, this is only IV. If you go to EV over here, the EV runs about EV and below runs about 3,000 EU a tick. That is much more manageable. It is longer time, so if you want to use an EV, you can. But at that point, I would say you could probably just still use the alvearies and you produce the same amount. And if you jump up to LUV over here, you start getting up to 37,000 EU a tick without any production upgrades, and then you start jumping and higher until you get to UV, which is the final tier, and you start jumping into the 100,000s EU a tick, which is ludicrous and is definitely not something you can afford if you're only running one XL gas turbine to power your entire base. Now let's talk about the upgrades for the industrial apiary. There are quite a few, so I'm going to try and speed through this as much as possible. Definitely rewatch this section if you want to learn more, or just look at the tooltips. They are actually pretty helpful in helping you determine which one of the upgrades you want. As I mentioned previously, you can only have 4 upgrade slots, as you can see here, and I would recommend that you keep an acceleration upgrade, the production upgrade, and the automation upgrade as 3 of them. So you only have I would say you only have about 1 upgrade slot remaining, so you need to pick and choose which ones carefully are needed for you. So let's talk about these. The first on the list here are the acceleration upgrades. Now each of them require the specific tier of world accelerator, and you get 6 acceleration upgrades per. You can only install 1, and it'll add in 1 amp of that specific tier to the industrial apiary. Obviously, once you get past the 5th tier and go to the 6th tier, this will now require LUV components, and you would need the assembly line for that. The final tier is the upgraded acceleration tier. This is actually 8 production upgrades around the UV world accelerated acceleration upgrade, and this is what is actually used. You need 64 of those for the mega apiary, which we'll talk about in a later episode. So next is the production upgrade. Like I said, you can have up to 8 of these, and it increases the production modifier by 0.25, but your energy consumption up by 40%. As you can see if we click on this, so that's the 40% here plus the 8,192, which gives us the 27,000 EU a tick. But production upgrades are very key in making sure you produce as many resources as possible out of the bees. The next is the plains upgrade for the bee, which sets the biome to plains, just like you would if you are like for the alveary. You check in the top right and it shows you that this is the plains biome. However, one thing you should know is most of these emulation upgrades for biomes also require LUV components, so you can't do this until you have access to the assembly line, and you still have to go through some part of the bees to get uranium bees and iridium bees just so you can make the combs. But some of these industrial upgrades require LUV components, which is why I recommended you don't start using industrial apiaries until late IV or at least LUV, because that's when you can actually make the components. So that's the plains upgrade. The next is a light upgrade, which allows the bee to work in any in any time of day, night or day, as it allows as it simulates diurnal for the bee, just like you would if you used just like regular APIARY. The next is the flowering upgrade. The flowering upgrade, makes the pollination around the bee better. Like you can pollinate things. This is really only useful for tree breeding. So I wouldn't recommend using this unless you want to do tree breeding. But however, the upgrade does exist. If you don't ever plan on doing tree breeding, then you'll never have to make this. The winter emulation upgrade obviously turns the biome to taiga, and again also needs this climate control module, which is LUV components. The dryer upgrade reduces the humidity like you could in a climatizer, but obviously this is for preferred climates for bees. You can have up to 16 of these and it reduces it by 12.5%. This also needs the LUV components. The automation upgrade, which is actually fairly cheap, is what I said is one of the recommended ones you have in there. This will automatically take the princess and the drone and put them back into their cycle to become a queen, so the iApiary just keeps running. This is what I recommend. I would definitely use this. I know it does add some energy consumption, but it makes it really, really easy to run your iApiary forever. You can obviously use conduits like you would in APIARY or an APIARY and automate it that way, but this is just really simple. Now the next is the humidifier upgrade. This obviously just puts the humidity up 12.5%, right? Like the dryer upgrade goes down 12.5%. You can have up to 16 of this. This again needs LUV components. The hell emulation upgrade simulates the nether biome. The hell biomes again needs LUV components. You can only have one of these. As you can see, all these will tell you how many maximum you can have installed. So most of them are one. Obviously, the upgrades for like biomes and things like for the temperatures and humidities, climate humidities, they can have up to 16. But for the biome ones, you can only have one. The pollen scrubber reduces all flowering and pollination. Now, this is a useful one if you don't want your bees to flower and pollinate around your area. However, there's a way to get around this. Just don't put any trees, so then bees can't pollinate them. And put your industrial apiary in a place that doesn't have a lot of grass and dirt, so then flowering can't spread. So this is not really needed, but if you are wanting to make it look aesthetic and you want your bee to be out in the open, like your iApiary out in the open in like a field, and you don't want flowers to spread, you could definitely use the pollen scrubber upgrade and the flowering will be reduced to nothing. The desert emulation upgrade, like it suggests, overrides the biome to the desert. Again, needs LUV components. The cooler upgrade takes the temperature down 12.5%. You can have up to 16. Again, needs LUV components. The lifespan upgrade, so that cuts the lifespan by 33%. It's like using the obsidian electron tubes in the APIARY. You can have up to a maximum of 4. This is technically cheaper than upping the tier of power that you give to the iApiary to make it faster, but I would still say that adding more power just to make it run faster and go through more cycles is probably better in the long run, but use this one if you wish. The seal upgrade is rain protection, so it'll work in the rain. However, if you have tolerant flyer on your bee, then it wouldn't really matter. Now, the genetic stabilizer upgrade. So this is what actually allows the ignoble bees to run in the iApiary without fear of dying. But again, like I said, you only get 4 upgrade slots, so be careful about the 4 that you choose. You can definitely use the genetic stabilizer upgrade with ignoble bees if you don't have anything else to put in the upgrade slots. That will definitely work. However, I always use pristines for pretty much all my bees if I can help it, so I don't really recommend using the genetic stabilizer upgrade unless you really need it. The jungle upgrade, just change the biome to jungle like all the other ones. The territory upgrade, maximizes the territory that the bee can pollinate, flower, and the effects that some of the bees give, right? Like the empowering bee or the beatific bee, which gives regen. So this is you could use this if you want. Also, again, not recommended. You don't need it. The ocean emulation upgrade overrides the biome to ocean. Again, needs LUV components. The open sky upgrade allows bees to work as if when they're underground. If you have the cave dwelling stat on the bee, then this really doesn't matter. Or if the bee is out in the open, this doesn't matter because it already can see the sky. The heater upgrade is temperature plus 12%, the opposite of the cooler upgrade. You can have up to 16 of these, and it just increases the temperature. These are just like the heaters and the fans and the hygroregulators that you can get with the APIARY, but these are the iApiary versions. The sieve upgrade collects pollen for you for, again, tree breeding. Not really needed unless you want to do tree breeding or you have plans to do it, but I would not recommend using this as it's not really that useful for anything. And finally, the night upgrade, which is internal darkness. It's like the APIARY unlighting that was added into the game. This just allows the bee to work at night. However, if you have both your bees diurnal and nocturnal, then it wouldn't really matter if they can work any point of the day. But this is for some bees that are specifically only in the dark, and you haven't put the diurnal stat on them so that they can't work throughout the day. You need a night upgrade just until you get that on there. So those are the upgrades for the industrial APIARY. Like I recommended, you want the automation upgrade, you want the production upgrade, and you want one acceleration upgrade. Those are the three I recommend you should have in your industrial APIARY for any setup you're running. And then the fourth one, you don't even have to put one in. Like there's nothing in this fourth one that I have here. However, you can put one of these if you need to change the biome, or if you need to have a specific, if you don't have rain protection, or if you don't have, or you want pollen collection. So just mix and match, do whatever you need for your specific needs. But remember that a lot of the components do require an assembly line, because you need LUV components and need the ability to make those. For the final part of this episode, I just wanted to show you how my industrial APIARY setup was before I moved to the Mega APIARY. This is underground. This is by my main central power, and obviously the AE components, the interfaces and whatnot were removed due to TPS reasons, and because we moved from the overworld to our personal dimension, which is where you've seen all those other B episodes in. However, this is how I had them stacked up, the industrial APIARY. You can put one on top of each other. You just have them running different things. I think some of them, if you hover over, if you look in the bottom right, it still says current queen T SETI. They're current queen Krypton, so they still actually have some of their bees in here. I just disabled them and made new ones, or didn't include them. Like I didn't need a Krypton bee when I moved to the Mega APIARY. But you can see that you can just do a very simple setup: iApiary stacked on iApiary stacked on iApiary, and just hook them up with power running in the back, and then interfaces in the front to send the items back and forth. One thing you should note is if you put an interface up here, and you can see that I have a cooler upgrade here. These are the part of the 4. You put an interface on here and put the item auto output. It'll send all of the items in here, including the princess and the drone, if you don't have the automation upgrade. So make sure that you have the automation upgrade if you're going to use the interface in here. So it'll send the princess and the drone back to this, so make the queen, and the rest of the items will go in there. I think actually also if you have this if you have this clicked, if you don't have it, if you have it enabled, then it'll also send the drone to here, and it doesn't get consumed when you item auto output. But you need at least this checked, or you need the automation upgrade so that it doesn't enter your system and it just keeps cycling. That's going to be it for this episode. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and leave a comment if you have any more thoughts about the industrial APIARY. This should be all the knowledge you really need to go forward and kind of understand what you need for industrial APIARYs. Like I said, the next episode will be about Gendustry, and then there'll be an episode about Mega APIARYs. However, you just need, this is what I thought you needed to know about the industrial APIARY, but let me know if there's anything in the comments I can help you guys with. I always try to respond to comments when I have time and I'm not busy, and I also want to talk about that. I have a full-time job, and I'm a master's student in my final semester of my graduate degree, as well as I try to stream every day. Streaming is something I really love to do. So that's why episodes don't come out as often as I would hope, or regularly, because I just have so much going on, and so I'm trying to get them out as best as possible, and so any support you guys show and understanding that I'm getting the episodes out as soon as I can is really much appreciated. But I will leave that with you guys here, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Have a good one. Peace.